Yeah. Hey. We don't ever get to this part except for office hours. Hey. Hey. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. No matter where you're coming from. Hope you all are doing well. What's going on, everybody? What's up? What's up? What's up? When are you dropping the mixtape? I don't know. I think about it a lot. Maybe one of these days. Maybe one of these days. What's going on, everybody? Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Hey, glad all you stopped by for some office hours today. Got the tea on deck. Nightbot's misbehaving. It's because there's so many of you. Where's the Tina emoji? Hold on, let's bring Tina. I think I gotta be in code for Tina. Let's bring Tina back just for a second. Hey, there we go. Do you, Tina? Hey. Can I have a link to your playlist? It's Stream Beats by Harris Heller. It's completely royalty-free music that you don't get in trouble for playing on on stream. We're all baddies. I've been so bad this weekend. Hey, turn up. What's going on, everybody? Get in here. Get in here. If you would like to ask questions today is office hours. For folks that might be finding us or might be new around here, we're running a free 30-week software engineering boot camp. And on Sundays, we do office hours, which is your chance to ask questions, for me to answer those questions, for us to do a little bit of a review. Sometimes we look at homework, sometimes we code some things live. It's just a chance for us to kind of continue to push and maybe, well, not push. It's chill office hours. And so it's just a time for us to answer questions and get some folks some clarity on some things they might need clarified. And so you can go ahead and ask questions in chat. I try my best to kind of answer some of the good ones that come through in chat. But we also use Slido to have questions that you can upvote. So the questions you want to see answered, you can upvote those and submit your own. That Slido always goes out 30 minutes before class starts on Discord. So if you want to get a jump and hopefully have the best shot, always make sure you look out for that message on Discord. But you can do !ask here in chat, or you can go to slido.com. And our code for today is 193453. Once again, that's 193453. Cool. Alrighty, folks. Welcome. You made the wife watch Independence Day with you, and then they made you watch Pride and Prejudice. That's a good trade. Hey, Jesus, what's up? How you doing? What tea you having today? I am drinking my normal vanilla chai by Tazo. Pretty good one. Hey, Dav said, Cross and I got 3 of the friends to join the new cohort, and he had them over the house last night and helped them with some CSS layouts. That's what I'm talking about. Hey, that's awesome. Alrighty, folks. As the hallmark of the day is, it is office hour, so we got some questions. I want to jump right into questions this morning. I'm sure we'll get some code and some things like that. Tonight might be a slightly shorter session. Maybe we'll probably go for like 2 hours today instead of the full 3, but we'll see how many questions we have coming in. There's a Bollywood Pride and Prejudice. That's dope. I gotta find that. I networked yesterday. I met a friend of mine, and their coworkers are software engineers. That's awesome. All right. This week, are we turning in CodePen or Glitch? It doesn't matter. You can pick whatever one you want. Yeah. Glitch, CodePen, and Replit are all fair game, just because we keep bringing down Glitch whenever we try to use Glitch. So whatever one works for you, we'll take any of those links. Cool. Groups. So we have study community groups that are being formed, right? Let me go to code here. And most of y'all filled out the survey, but some of you thought that the second survey was optional. It's not. If you want to be put into a study community, you needed to fill out this form that's on the screen right now. That form is on Discord. I put it out in today's message in the Follow Materials channel. It was in there before. So if you want to be put into a study community, you need to fill out that form. We have 40 communities ish that we're bringing to life. And so all those channels are being created, and we're going to start adding folks as early as today. So if you want to be added to a study community, you need to have filled out the form. You don't have to submit it more than once. If you submit it more than once, we're just going to take your first pick anyway. But yeah, so study community, you want to be in a smaller group, that's it right there. Cool. You can always do !ask if you want to ask questions and see the Slido. Delster, we haven't started that yet. So we haven't started Mentor Mondays yet. We're probably going to go maybe like another week or two before we start kind of doing that. Cool. This isn't even my final form. All right, let's go ahead and take a look. In regards to specificity, what are the rules with media queries? Does it matter where we place them in the cascade and in which order? Yes, so it does matter because the cascade is still in effect. Some people like to put their media queries at the top. That way they are kind of first in line when it comes to the cascade. And some people like to put them at the bottom. That way they're last in line with the cascade. But specificity is still in play with media queries. And so you want to make sure that if you're doing your media queries at the bottom, or even at the top too, that you keep in mind specificity, because specificity is still at play. Just because they're in a media query doesn't matter. So top or bottom is personal preference. I think Shayhal does them at top. I think I normally do them at the bottom, and I just keep in mind my specificity. Yeah. Dab said bottom crew. What is the specificity weight of a media query? It's nothing. So the media queries don't actually add any extra specificity. That's where some people get into some trouble. It's not like a class or something like that where it gets bumped. It's just the same. Yeah. Oh. Look at this next one here. Do you want a full replication of the BBC, Khan, and TechCrunch sites, or were you just after basic layout? I want you to go as deep as you can, right? I want you to start off writing bad code and get a layout going. Once you get the layout, I want you to go as deep as you can, time permitting, right? So whenever I give you an assignment, right? Whenever I give you an assignment, I want you to start with writing bad code. For some of you, that's where you'll stop. You'll have a rough layout. The idea will be there. And some of you will turn in almost pixel perfect layouts. I don't care where you fall in that range unless I say I want it pixel perfect. And we won't get to pixel perfect until way later in program, right? So some folks will turn in just a very rough layout, and some folks will go the full distance and get it looking like the photo. That's up to you. Everyone has different time and what they're able to do outside of class. And so I care about, did you put in your best effort? Did you take it as far as you could take it? Did you push yourself, right? Did you push yourself? That's what I care about. I really don't care about the end result as long as you push yourself to get the rough layout going. And so I think that's something that's really important. And I think everyone's different in their ability to push themselves. Right. And so that's what I'm asking you to do. I want you to go deep, not wide. I want you to push yourself and come out a better engineer. And so that actually leads to some really important things when folks are working on these layouts. You want to be doing things that are high cognitive effort, right? You want to be doing things that are high cognitive effort. One of the things I see people do early on that kind of sets them up for, unfortunately, failure later on is that they don't put in the work right now. They kind of do things that keep them busy, but aren't actually like pushing their brain, right? And so be careful that you're not putting yourself in that scenario where you're kind of just keeping yourself busy and not pushing to get stuff done. Some ways that folks kind of do this is unfortunately groups, right? So if you're in a group, make sure that if the group is figuring stuff out, that you're also figuring stuff out, right? Sometimes you're better off doing it alone and then coming to a group once you've already figured it out. A lot of times folks will use groups as a crutch, and they don't actually ever push themselves to learn. They kind of just sit there passively and like listen to other people doing stuff. That's just not going to honestly work in the long run. Groups are great for reviewing and doing things like that, but if that's your primary mechanism for learning, it's going to be rough, right? Sometimes people fall on videos instead of text, right? There are like these little things that we do that make ourselves feel better, that aren't that high cognitive effort. And the only person that knows, right? The only person that knows whether or not you're actually putting in that effort and pushing yourself and bettering where you were from the day before is you. There's nothing that I can give you, because I don't believe in testing. I don't believe in quizzes. I don't do any of that crap, right? The only way that it's true is if you do it, right? And so make sure you're doing things that are improving yourself, and make sure you feel a little bit uncomfortable, right? The things that feel comfortable, where you're kind of just in a groove, you're just trying to chill in, you definitely need those kind of days, but that's not where a lot of the growth I've seen in my students, right? Make sure you're pushing yourself. We talked about early on, right? The idea of cognitive effort, right? The idea of cognitive effort, and you got to put it in if you want to go to distance. Now, I say this on the eve of putting us all into smaller groups so that we can learn together, right? So I'm not saying that groups don't work. It's just that you got to be cognizant of how much time you have. What are you doing with that time? And are you investing in strategies that are going to actually help you learn? Cool. Next question. How's it going? What do we tell people that say they aren't going to watch Independence Day? Nothing. That's on them. Independence Day forms a pretty big portion of this cohort. It's the source of a lot of our examples. It's a source of a lot of our jokes. And if you don't watch the movie, you will be behind. As always, this isn't my life. This is y'all's life, right? This is y'all's life. If you don't want to do something, right? Don't do something, that's on you. I'm not going to lose sleep over it. Right? I think that's one of the interesting things about this style of boot camp, right? It's free, right? It's free. You can leave at any time. You can just close your eyes and never see me again. That's cool. You didn't pay no money to be here. And on my end, I like it that way, right? I like that you can test it out, see if it's for you, see if it's something that you want to do. But if you're here, I'm going to ask you to do some things. And at any point you feel like you don't want to do those things, you can leave, right? But I'm not here to waste your time. Hopefully you realize that by now, that I'm putting in a full work week outside of my actual job to make this program work for everyone. And when I assign things, it's not because I just feel like it. It's because I've seen it help my students in the past, right? I'm doing this for 10 years. And so, yeah, it sounds funny to watch a movie, but I'm asking you to watch it because I think it's going to help you. You know? But if you don't want to watch it, that's on you. And there are plenty of places that you can watch it for free. You can't put links in chat, but you can, any streaming site, you can watch Independence Day. There are some folks that wanted to watch it on Discord. Please don't. Please don't watch it on Discord. Because that's kind of like a gray area. We're not sure if that like crosses the line or not. I know some folks are trying to like watch it together. Please don't watch like copyrighted stuff like YouTube and things like that. Tutorials are fine, but yeah, don't watch the movies on Discord. After being a baddie and writing bad code, I feel like my code is not dry. We don't have the music playing. It's office hours. There we go. I feel like my code is not dry. Are we going to cover refactoring later? Yeah, you got to get this. When you're a baddie writing bad code, you don't care about being dry. And I think this is one of the biggest things that hurt my students early on is this idea that they got to write clean code, that they have to follow best practice, that it has to be dry, right? That it has to be dry, right? It doesn't. Your code doesn't. Who says it has to be? No one, right? It doesn't in the beginning. In the beginning, the goal is to get stuff done, right? It's to be able to push yourself to learn. All that thing, like keeping your code dry, clean code, best practices, that's for closers. That's for folks that have already finished and then want to come back and revisit their code. So in the beginning, take that, in my opinion, nonsense out of your brain. It has no place when you're a month into learning how to code, right? It has no place when you're a month into learning how to code. Get that out. Don't worry about that for now. When you finish the program, go read Clean Code. By the grandfather of clean code was Martin C, right? Knock yourself out. Write the cleanest, most driest code ever imaginable. But when you're first starting and you're in your third week of writing code, no. Take that weight off your shoulders. You'll have, this is a 30-week program. You're in week 4, right? You'll have plenty of time to write better code later on. Some people are saying, what if you can't watch Independence Day because of religious reasons? Then yeah, don't watch it. Please. Yeah, you can probably find a summary online, read the Wikipedia article, right? Yeah. Don't do things that you can't do because somebody on the internet says to. Yeah. Next one. With such a huge shortage slash demand for full stack devs, why does it take so much finagling to get jobs? Because the bulk of people that apply for software engineering roles don't know how to code. That's it. That's why this process is so wild. It's so confusing. You got to jump through so many hoops. It's because that most people that actually go and interview for a job can't code themselves out of a bag, right? Think about how many people are pumping out, like how many universities, right? Where there's 14,000 research-based universities in the world, right? 14,000, right? And we're dumping all those CS grads out that have just studied like stuff that nobody wants to pay them for. They haven't written any practical code. They haven't written any they haven't built anything from the portfolio. They have all these boot camps that are dumping out folks that just followed a tutorial, that watched somebody else code, never actually coded by themselves, right? Never actually read on their own, right? They're pumping these people out. Then you have all these engineers that like haven't kept up with the times, don't actually write code anymore, right? And they don't ever open up leak code or any of these things, right? And so you just have an overwhelming amount of people that show up to these interviews that literally cannot write code, right? And so that's why all of these hoops are in place, because I mean I'm on the hiring end too. I'm on the hiring, right? When I would interview 100 engineers, I would have like 20 that I was kind of excited about and maybe 10 that I thought were really good fits, and then we made offers to like 5, right? Like it's just overwhelming, right? Yeah, Indifferent said it's so much more than that. When I was hiring and people 80% didn't know anything. Yeah, it's really high and it's really bad. And so for me, that's why it's there, right? That's why it's there. is literally that you have so many candidates that can't code a simple function. I can't write a simple CSS rule that can't solve a problem, right? That can't solve a problem as simple as FizzBuzz, right? And we're gonna cover FizzBuzz a lot when we get to JavaScript, but they can't even solve a FizzBuzz, right? And so there was this problem, right? There was this coding challenge that became really popular, and what the coding challenge was all right, print all the numbers between 1 and 100, right? But if the number is divisible by 3, print fizz. If the number is divisible by 5, print buzz. And numbers divisible by 3 and 5, right, do fizz buzz. So you're printing numbers 1 to 100, and you're replacing some numbers with words. It's actually a very simple problem once you learn how to write basic code. And so this became such an important problem that everyone was asking it. And then people stopped and said, wait a minute, if everyone's asking this, we should stop asking this question. And then it fell out of favor. But then it came back, because since it's such a very common question that if you can't solve it, it means not only can you not code, but you didn't actually study for your interviews. And so now it's kind of back with a fire. And I can tell you from firsthand, there are so many engineers that show up at my door that can't even code FizzBuzz. So yeah. That's why there's all these hoops. That's why there's almost all this weird stuff. And then you have people, right? You have people, thousands and thousands of people that just click apply a bazillion times on any open job, right? Right? They hit apply on any open job. They just hit apply. And so all these people, all these jobs, right? Right? All these individuals, right, are... right? All these individuals are just clicking apply. So any job that you do have open is going to have hundreds of applicants that are just absolutely not qualified at all, that you would never even probably bring into an interview. So there's even more muck to go through. So it's a little ranty, but yeah, that's the reason why there's all these kind of finagling and hoops to jump through. It's just the overwhelming amount of people that show up just don't know how to code. You're not joking, people going for an interview not being able to do FizzBuzz? Yeah, that's true. They don't. I would say the bulk of them don't. What do you think of programs like all these kind of fintech ones? I like jobs over internships, but you do you. I feel like anything that has a clear path to being employed full time with a great salary, sure, why not? I get guarantees though. So schools teach theory but no practicality. Most schools, yeah. I think you're very lucky if you go through a CS program and you have like 1 or 2 classes on web. If you have 2 classes on web development, watch out. Most only have 1, and it's pretty out of date. Did anyone from the last cohort get hired by Fang? Yeah, we had quite a few. But yeah, don't set Fang as your goal. Somebody on the internet sold you a dream. It's okay to have it, but if you're here for a boot camp, there's so many amazing companies that pay well, that have great work-life balance, that are a really realistic shot of getting into very easily. Fang grind is no joke. It would not make my #1 priority. Yeah, no, I mean, I have a lot of folks that go to Fang, and then I have a lot of folks that leave Fang too. This slow mode is changing the game. Is there any extra work that we can do to get ourselves further ahead? Go deep, not wide. Do all of your projects look perfect, right? Do all your layouts look exactly like the photo? There's nothing else for you to do until you get to that point, right? Go deep, not wide. If you're a graphic designer with a UX UI background, is there any benefit to learn to what? Any benefit to that while learning full stack? Yeah, I mean, if you can build UIs, or if you're a good designer or a good user experience professional, you become what's called a unicorn, right? If you can code and do that, it just makes you that much more hireable, because companies can get a 2-for-1 deal, right? And so companies love a 2-for-1 deal. So definitely, if you already have another skill set, adding software engineering onto it is really helpful. It's not something I recommend though. I see some folks saying, good, I'm learning both. No, don't learn both at the same time. Pick one. Go deep, not wide. Don't burn yourself out, right? That's more, that advice is more for folks that have already like spent like their part of their career as a UX or UI professional. I don't recommend like doing both at the same time. It's too much. You'll wind up not being good at either most of the time. I don't know you or how much time you have, but most of the time when I see folks try to take on two very different skill sets at the same time and try to become good at them, it just hasn't really worked out for my students in the past. What do you advise on joining a paid internship along with the program? I don't recommend internships. So if that's something you want to do, sure, go for it. If it's paid, sure, go for it. But the only time I really recommend internships is if they lead to a full-time offer and you get that in writing. Otherwise, I think your time is better spent skilling up and then going for a full job. How different is working at a company than learning code? It's very different, because like you have a team, there's deliverables, but the way that we structure class is it kind of should be what you feel like on the job, right? At the beginning of the week, you get some things you got to do. At the end of the week, you have some things that are due. We're going to talk more about the process and how you work with other engineers. By the time you leave 100 devs, you will have worked with clients, you have built projects on your own, you will have worked on teams to ship projects. So it will be different, but it shouldn't be, you should have some experience going into that job from 100 devs that has you prepared for it. How do you get the live caption? If you hover over the video, there should be like a little icon that says CC. You just click on that. How much leak coding is considered enough for the first job? I would say half of my students get jobs without a technical interview. So the correct answer for how much leak coding could be 0, right? But you do things that tip the odds in your favor. I am not one, like, I think unless you have a paid client, a project that you've put 100 hours into that's completely your own and not a tutorial, and you've invested time into crafting your story, your portfolio, your resume, you shouldn't worry about anything else until you have those things. Once you have those things, you're ready to start applying, and then you can start adding leak code and code wars and those type of things on top of it. But if you're just saying like, Leon, what do I got? How much leak code do I need to do? The answer is 0. You don't really need to do leak code. And that's unless you're trying to go for FANG. And that's why I think there's this industry right now that's trying to sell you on something. Yes, doing leak code is good, but it doesn't have to be a leak code grind unless you're going for top tier companies. That being said, we'll do a lot of leak code throughout this program. You'll be doing a coding challenge every day towards the end of the program. Will this bootcamp give me a necessary background to pursue a tech role not focused on programming? I have no idea. I'm here to get you a programming job. No idea if it'll cross over to something else, but maybe you could ask some other folks, PMs, things like that, what they think could be helpful. But this is geared on getting you a job as a software engineer. So leak code is a coding challenge. Yeah, it's just a different, like a bunch of coding challenges that you can solve. Do you feel like there's high competition now with software engineers? No, this is the best time I've ever seen to get a job. Indifferent. Yeah, there's no difference between any of those roles. What do you feel is the average time from initial meet to coffee chat? Like a week, a month if they're busy. Yeah, normally I try to set it up for like the next week or so. Does anyone in the cohort go on a product role? We had one person that went product, but this is not a product boot camp. I would much prefer you try something else instead. There are more focused things if you want to become a PM that wouldn't waste as much of your time. Why do some jobs not require a coding challenge? A lot of jobs just realize it's not like a good metric for success. Right? Like it's really high pressure, it's stressful, and some folks just don't do good in that environment. And so a lot of companies value what you've been able to do, what you've been able to build, and being able to demonstrate that you've built stuff in the past, right? Like there's like the two things that Elon Musk looks for when they hire someone, and it makes me think of this, where they look at like, do you have like past the main experience, and like can you prove that you have that experience in some way, right? And has somebody else like paid you to do it? Right? And so the idea is that, like, instead of trying to test people, just look if they've been able to do the things that they're going to do on the job. So when you have 100 hours project where you sunk 100 hours into building a product, and that product is somewhat similar to the product that they're going to have you build on the job, then why would they need to test you? They've already seen that you're able to build. They already see that you're able to build stuff similar to what you'd be building on the job. And that's why a lot of them can eschew more testy type behavior, because they've already seen that you're able to do the things that they're going to pay you to do. Is there anyone in charge of an overall product team? Yeah, I mean, so typically like you'll have like a team that includes like a designer, some engineers, and a project manager. And the project manager is like the one that's like helping get the project going forward. Different companies do it in different pieces. Sometimes you'll have an engineering manager instead. Like every company is kind of different. Hundred hours doesn't even seem like so much now. I spent 100 hours just in the first 3 weeks of the cohort. Yeah. When you say go deep, is it referring to CSS as a whole or what we're specifically working on? It's the whole and what you're working on. Everyone has different levels of time that they can commit. Your goal is to get the projects done, and then as you have more time, you go deeper, either making the projects better, bringing those best practices that we eschew when we're just trying to get it done, filling in the gaps for things that don't make sense from the reading. Right? There's so much that you could do. Like you could spend 100 hours on just the stuff that's assigned, and so it's up to you how deep you go throughout the week. Will we have some sort of mentor on our first job, or is it kind of thrown to the wolves type situations? It could be either or, and I think that's something that a lot of people look for in their first job, is like, what's the level of on-ramping or mentorship? Don't shoot yourself in the foot and ask that question during the interview. Ask that question when you have an offer letter though. But yeah, I think that's something that a lot of people will evaluate as to whether or not they join a company, is like how much support is there. And I've seen both ends of the spectrum. I would say, unfortunately, most of my students are dropped into a wolves type situation, which is why I think it's so important to get good at reading, to get good at learning on your own, right? Like I say this on the eve of putting you all into groups, but you have to be good at learning on your own, because when you join a company, you get plopped on the team, you get a really large ticket. It's just you. It's just you. And you can definitely get help and things like that, but it's going to be on you, and you got to develop those muscles. Does admitting this is your first job consider snitching on yourself? Yeah, because you have been freelancing, you will have gotten paid clients, you will have worked on open source projects. So that would not only be snitching, it would also be lying. We're not liars. Have you had a chance to play Legends yet? No, I haven't had any time. Let's take a look at another one from the list here. When containing sections such as the 2x2 grid in the BBC layout, is there a semantic reason to use sections over divs if it's just to contain them? Well, sections and divs are both containing elements, right? So you would use both of them whenever you're containing something. Sections have more semantic meaning when you're grouping like content. So that like 2x2 grid are sections to me because I'm grouping similar content or like content. Could you use a div there? Sure. Who cares? If you're being a baddie and writing bad code, it just doesn't matter. But yeah, for me, it would be a section. I think there's a semantic reason to use it there. Are there any sites other than Glassdoor to determine how the workplace environment would be? Glassdoor is like a pretty big one. Blind is another one. But I like to talk to people before you accept an offer. Talk to people on the job. What are Jira tickets? So each week you're probably going to have like some things you have to get done, and it's very common to be assigned tickets. Tickets are kind of like the individual coding tasks that you have to get done. And there's lots of software where you can like manage those tickets, assign those tickets to other engineers, and pull together what's called a sprint process, right? Like where you figure out like who's working on what, assign them to people. Jira is one of the softwares that enable you to like assign those tickets. How can we learn both design and coding to be a unicorn? You do a coding boot camp and then a design boot camp, but I recommend picking one. What's a good source to determine the salary we should aim for in our area? The Glassdoor, you can just look for software engineer in your area and it'll give you like an average. But look at how many people have submitted to that average, because sometimes it's pretty low and so it's not really a good idea. Also, salaries.fyi is a good place to look to. So would it on the job tickets be something like push layout challenge? It'll be broken down a little bit further. Like you'll be assigned to like do like a very specific thing, and you might have multiple tickets each week. So it could be anything from like do a layout to like fix a very specific thing that's happening. So yeah, it ranges, and there's typically like points values assigned to them or weights, and you have to get so many points a week or something like that. No. In your honest opinion, what's the graduation rate of people finishing your program? The numbers dwindle near the end. Yeah, definitely. Probably about like a third from last cohort. And I think we'll probably have around the same for this one. But that's a really good thing, right? I think that's actually a great thing because it's a completely free and open program. So you can try it out, see that it's not for you, and then go on to something else that's good for you, right? Or figure out, you know what, coding's not for me, or I just don't like it, right? And so that's why I love doing this for free, right? And I like to do it in the open so you can test these things out and see if it is for you, see if you don't like it. When you join a normal boot camp where you're paying 20 grand, you have a bunch of people that just make it to the end and they're unhappy. They just don't like it. But they feel like they've paid so much money, they got to be there. They don't actually wind up doing the projects. They don't actually wind up doing anything. They wind up cheating most of the way through. Like it's just so much weird stuff can happen. And that's not for everyone, obviously, but I think think it being open and being flexible for people to drop is a wonderful thing. And when people do drop, it leaves the folks that are really focused, and that's really good. Someone from last cohort realized they wanted to recruit in that code. Exactly. Okay. All right, let's take a look at this next question here. Can we go over some web design naming conventions using the screenshots we were given for homework? For example, what is a hero? I just don't think those things are really big anymore. Like they used to be, like back in the day, like you used to have like more, I don't know, different. What do you think about this? There used to be like more terminology, I think, for stuff. And then we got more semantic choices in our HTML, and a lot of that kind of changed, right? A lot of that changed as we got like more semantic stuff in HTML, and we got better systems for CSS, right? And so I think a lot of those like classic things that came a lot from like the Ruby community, they've kind of petered off a little bit. But what a hero is just like that main section at the top, right? The question was like web design naming conventions, like what is a hero? Are they still like popular? I think some people still use them. I'm just seeing them less and less now. A hero used to be like what that main area was. People always joke that like, what two sites are you building? Like what two sites are you designing? This one or this or that one? Let me see if I can find the tweet real quick. Two sites are you designing? Let me see if I can find it. I still wrap my pages in a Jumbotron. Yeah. I wish I could find that tweet. I'm not seeing it. I'll see if I can find it. But there's like this like classic tweet that was which one of these two sites are you designing right now? And it's like a very normal layout and like a very normal layout, and you're like, holy crap, the web is really just those two things, right? It's like every site out there right now, right? Every site out there right now really follows like the pattern for two layouts. And in fact, it's exactly the layouts that we assigned for homework, right? They all look exactly the same. And so the joke was like, which one of these two layouts are you building right now? Oh, you found it, Nick? Hold on, let's see. Yeah, I can copy it. Ah, perfect. Thank you. Let me pull it up. Yeah, here it is. It's which of these two possible websites are you currently designing, right? And every single site falls into like these two things, right? This layout or this layout, right? And the hero is this right here. Let me turn on Demo Pro 1 second. So the hero is like this, that like above the fold big area, right? Above the fold big area is the hero, right? These two pieces right here. Now some people might, I think in different was saying Jumbotron, right? And different say Jumbotron, like different systems that you use, right? Different systems that you use call these different things. And so I am not a fan of like introducing a lot of this type of jargon, but the fun thing that you're going to find is that each team you join is going to do it differently, right? So you're going to join a team, maybe join a team that uses Ruby, right? And then things like Hero become really popular. And so each team you join, each company you join will have their own jargon, and it'll probably be based on the tools that they use. But a lot of that stuff I think is not something that I really kind of cover, but you'll probably come across it. Yeah. Yeah. That's like the only one I could think of too that I would probably tell you about. Just the Hero. Yeah. I think the closest for web naming conventions is the schema.org conventions. Yeah, I think so. I think, yeah, and that's it. Like there are things that have kind of come across that are like better now, right? Whereas before we were using stuff that came from like a specific community, there are people that are like intentional now. Yeah. How do we deal with a person you're having a coffee chat being unprofessional / creepy? You leave. You thank them for their time and you leave. Yeah. Or maybe you don't thank them for your time, just leave. If somebody's putting you in a bad situation, you don't feel comfortable, you don't feel like you're being respected, you leave. Just get up and go. Right? Nobody, I don't care who they are, who they work for, how deep in the industry they are, like fuck them, leave. Right? And the beautiful thing is if you're doing it remotely, you can just click out, right? You can just click the X and move on, right? Not worth your time. Some people feel pretty awkward with those type of situations. So if you do feel awkward having, I'm so sorry, emergency came up, and you leave. That's it. You just never reach out to them again. That's it. Right? But yeah, don't ever put yourself in a situation where you feel uncomfortable, where you feel creeped out. Like, it's not worth your time. There's a million other developers that meet and interact with, hundreds of other companies that you could be interacting with. Don't let one person use the small crumb of power influence they might have to put you into a weird situation, because there are some people that do that, and fuck them, move on. Do you think certain boot camps get you a job because they don't get tuition until you find a job? No, I think ISAs are the biggest scam ever. I'm not a fan of ISAs. I don't want somebody to sign up to wind up having to pay $50,000 worth of their income over the next 2 or 3 years. I think that's wildly inappropriate. ISA is an income service agreement, right? I think we got rid of indentured servitude a long time ago, so I don't know why we brought it back with a new name. And even those companies, they don't care, right? This is like the reality of a boot camp. It's an industry secret. Most people don't make it through these programs. Learning to code is hard, right? Learning to code is hard. Learning to code may maybe not be for everyone. And so what a lot of these companies try to do is push a lot of folks through it, get them to the point where they've graduated, even though they didn't learn anything, and then take a percentage of their money in any field that they go into or other weird stuff, right? But most people just don't make it through these programs. And I refuse. I think it's just absolutely wrong that when we know that a lot of folks won't make it through them, that you charge the money, you set up a point of contention where they feel like they're locked into paying some money back. Like, no. And the other thing too is that a lot of these companies also test, right? Like, you can't even get into certain boot camps unless like you do a bunch of these things, and that way they can keep like their numbers inflated. No, anyone should be able to see if they like your style of learning, if they like your style of education, right? And if it's not for them, they should be able to leave. They shouldn't be locked into some program. They shouldn't be able to get their $1,000 deposit back. There's just so much wild stuff that happens that's just inappropriate. Yeah. And that's the other thing too. Lee Clark brought that up. They don't even hold on to the ISAs. They resell them. A lot of these companies get your ISA, like your contract that you have to pay them money, and then they flip that contract. They don't care that you get the job. They don't care that you hold the job. They've already sold the ISA for a profit to someone else. Rudy had a spicy Leon rant on the topic of your choice. Rudy, what's the topic? Hold on, let me see if I can pull it up on the other Forb. The importance of introducing yourself when adding someone on LinkedIn. All right, so the importance of introducing yourself when adding someone on LinkedIn. So with channel points, we have a very high value channel points goal, which is the spicy Leon rant of your choice. And so Rudy 35 Hernandez just spent an unheard of amount of channel points for a spicy rant. So I'm going to rant on the importance of introducing yourself when you add someone on LinkedIn. All right, let's get into it. I'm gonna turn off the music too. Alrighty. People don't care about you. They just don't. They're going about their lives. They're trying to get stuff done. They're trying to do their work, and they literally do not care about you. If you send somebody a message on LinkedIn, there are two different types of people. Well, if you add someone on LinkedIn, there's two different types of people. There are people that will immediately accept you on LinkedIn because they care about some sort of like vanity number going up, or because they know they can eventually spam you for something, right? The other people care about their network. They care about who's brought into their network. They care about curating a group of people that they know they can reach out to, that they connect other people to, right? And so there's two different types of people on LinkedIn. One that just care about vanity and spamming, and people that actually care about their network. When you just add someone on LinkedIn, you're more likely to attract the person that doesn't care about their network because they're trying to get these numbers to go up. But when you send messages, you're more likely to attract the other type of person. Guess what's going to be way more impactful in the long run of your career? Please do not go on LinkedIn and just go, everyone that has like software engineer in their title, you add them on LinkedIn, it will not help you. No one will ever help you get a job because you added them on LinkedIn. The bar is too low. Your goal, even on LinkedIn, is to make friends so that you can get the referral. So if you're just adding people on LinkedIn, the people that actually care about their network are not going to accept. They're just going to skip over you. I get hundreds of requests that I just skip over because I don't have no idea who you are, right? I have no idea who you are. Like I'm not going to connect with somebody I have no idea who you are. So the person that really cares about their network, aka somebody like me, will have skipped you, right? And if you want to attract the individuals that keep their network close, you have to introduce yourself. You have to send a message, right? You have to say, "Hey, my name's so and so." Well, you don't have to say your name. Just, "Hey, I really appreciate the things that you're doing. I love the projects that you work on. I would love to like connect and get to learn a little bit more about how you do the things that you do," right? Provide some amount of value, right? If you do not do that, you are not building a network. You're not doing anything productive. You're not going to do anything that's going to help you get a job. What you're doing is you're opening yourself up to more spam and to people that do not care about building their network. So when you add someone on LinkedIn, you must send a message. You must actually put some effort into it. You must provide some amount of value, or else you're just wasting a really good opportunity. You're wasting a really good network, right? LinkedIn is amazing when it's just straight right? LinkedIn is an amazing tool when it's just people that you've realistically connected with, right? When you really know every single person on your LinkedIn, it becomes a phenomenal tool. I love when people say, "Hey, Leon, you're connected to Bob. Can you introduce me to Bob?" And I go, "Oh yeah, I absolutely can introduce you to Bob." And boom, you're connected to Bob. But I can't do that if I've never actually talked to you and I just spam added a bazillion people. LinkedIn goes from one of the most important, wonderful tools that you can use in your career to something that's completely wasteful, like just not worth anything, right? And so I think, go through and remove people. I do it all the time. Like if I don't remember who you are, like gone. So please, when you're putting time into LinkedIn, we're gonna have classes on this too. We haven't had our LinkedIn class yet, but when you're adding people on LinkedIn, send a message, provide value. Don't just be the person that randomly clicks 1,000 people. It won't help. It won't help you get a job. All right, Rudy, I hope that was worth your channel points. I removed over 1K on Twitter. Good. I think Twitter's a little bit more open. I think this is your second one. I think Twitter's a little bit more free and open. I'll follow people. Also, like, I don't know. Twitter's been weird for me. I'm not good at Twitter. I'm not good at Twitter. I kind of really don't like Twitter. Because there's always like, I don't know. There's so much good stuff that happens on Twitter, but that's not the stuff we pay attention to, right? Well, at least me, it's not the stuff I pay attention to, right? Like we'll get like 100 people saying amazing things about 100 devs, and then there's like one person that like didn't read the form correctly, and they're just like, it's like the worst affront that they've ever had in their life, right? Like the fact that they didn't read something, like it's just their whole life is over, and they got like a 4-page twit longer about how like it's the end of the world and 100 devs is the devil reborn, and it's just like, okay, that's weird. And so like you try to like ignore those individuals, right? You try to ignore those individuals, but at the end of the day, it's the thing that like you see, right? That's the thing that you see, and like that's the thing that gets in your brain. And you could say haters are going to hate. Exactly, that's what I try to say, but at the end of the day, it does something to your brain, right? Twitter's been an amazing tool for like networking. Like I've met so many wonderful people on Twitter. Like to me, that I have to have it. Like I need to use it. It's how I interact with other developers. It's how I interact with people that I would never get a chance to talk to otherwise. And so I see the value of Twitter, and I get it. It's just, I know it's doing something to my brain. I just know that it's doing something to like my mental health, and I just don't like it, right? But for me, it's been a game changer in how I network with people. It's been a game changer in how I connect with people. I just think I need to be better at like just not giving into it and like blocking people. Like it's so weird to like, I don't know. It's so weird to like, I we've streamed for like 50 hours in the past like couple weeks, right? Like in the past couple weeks, we've been live for almost 50 hours. Like I put in like another 40 hours each week, like preparing lectures, like putting together slides, like answering questions on Discord. So like I'm putting like an ungodly amount of work into like making this work. And then like you go on Twitter and like the first thing you see is like a venting session for 100 devs, and you're like, what? Like what's go like what? Why couldn't you just send me a mod mail? If you didn't like something, like why are you like putting me on blast? Just send me a mod mail and I'll fix it. Like I just don't get it. I just don't get it, right? Some people feel like this need to like put hate out there. I don't know. I just don't like it. And so it's like just send me a message. Like send me a mod mail. I respond to every single message, right? I respond to every single message that gets put into the Ask Leon channel. We respond to every mod mail. If you're unhappy about something, like tell us, we'll fix it. Yeah. And so it's weird. I don't get it. But to me, Twitter has been an amazing tool, right? It's been an amazing tool. It's helped me like interact with people I've never interacted with before, but there's some other weird stuff going on there, you know? Yeah. Ooh, we're at the top of the hour. We're at the top of the hour. Let's go ahead and let's take our break. If you're new around here, right? If you're new around here, let's go ahead and we'll take 5 minutes for our break. Please, if you're able, get up, move around, stretch, look out the window, let your eyes relax on something that's not your screen, and we'll be back. Remember, we're in this for the long haul, right? Right? We're in this for a long haul, right? We're in this to be healthy for the long haul. So let's go ahead, let's take our break, and we'll be back. Bring back the music. All right, folks, see you in 5. I always love people like, no, Bob. So I played Destiny 2. I do not play Destiny 2, although one of my friends and I were looking for like a new game to get into, and that's on our list. Can we get a Bob camera? It's expensive to get into. Don't do it. You play Switch? Yeah, that's the main thing I play on other than my PC. Where can we leave our curly hair recommendations? You can put them in the Ask Leon channel, or yeah, I think that's the easy way to do it. Appreciate everybody. I got I would probably say at least, I don't want to overshoot it, but like at least 20 different people messaging me different hair care products, and I've read all of them. Thank you. I appreciate you. I got to figure it out. And so I've just been like looking at, like, right now I just know, like, if I start looking for stuff like online, just the ads that are targeting me now because I'm looking at all these products is pretty wild. And then there's like, yeah, there's like people feuding too. Like somebody recommend something, somebody's like, don't use that product, like, don't ever use that product. So it's like, all right, I gotta do my research. I appreciate all the things that are coming in. I'm gonna do my due diligence. I'm gonna figure it all out. I appreciate it. I'll get to 1 million Leon points. A hair war. Yeah. Thanks for the body exercises. My back and wrists are feeling much better. Hey, I'm glad to hear it. Yeah, they really do help a lot. The Dr. Levi, something I do every day, and that back stretch literally changed my life. What's the production year of Independence Day? I think it's 96. Yeah, not the new one. New one doesn't exist. All right, folks, let's keep looking through these questions. Like I said today, I think we'll go a little bit shorter today. I think we'll do 2 hours instead of our normal 3. So I'm going to try and get through the rest of some of these questions that we have here. Should we be putting 100 devs on LinkedIn right now as our jobs or experience? If so, how do we handle that? We'll have classes on how to set up your LinkedIn, your resume, your portfolio, all that stuff. And so it's not something you have to do right now. We'll do it when we get to that point in class. Yeah. If you feel like you want to do it now, you can look at some of the past alumni and how they set theirs up, or watch that class on YouTube. But it's something that we'll definitely cover in class on how to set everything up. Yeah. So up to you if you want to do it now, but you can probably wait until we get a little bit further along. Is it best practice to use the character entity references in HTML? Like using the apostrophe S? You can just do apostrophe S. The only ones that really matter in terms of them are like special characters. So you don't have to use any of the weird character codes for normal letters, but for special characters, you could probably use them. Yeah. I want a remote job. How would this affect my approach for networking and attending meetups? Do I still go after local meetups? Well, it will drastically change what you do. There's 2 ways to go about it. Would you be open to relocating? If no, then it's a little bit different. But if you want to be a fully remote job, it depends on where you're located. Even though a lot of companies are remote, they still only hire folks that are in the US or like certain countries, right? Canada, UK. So what you have to be careful of is if you're looking for remote opportunities and you're not in the US, you are in for a big challenge, right? It is a very hard thing to do to get a fully remote position not being in those countries. I just want to be very clear. Some people like to sell this like dream. I'm not here to do that. I'm here to give it to you real. And so it's very hard. Is it doable? Absolutely. Do we have lots of folks last cohort that did it? Yes, but they worked their butts off to make it happen. And so what you need to do is find all the companies that are fully remote, that hire fully remote around the world. And there are lots of them. When we get further into the course about how to find jobs, I'm going to share a list of 80 plus companies that hire globally, but you can find all those lists on your own. You want to find all of those companies that hire globally, that don't care where you come from. And then you're going to find every single living, breathing human that works at those companies, add them on Twitter, right? Find the events they're going to, and your networking becomes targeted. It's not kind of like an open for all type networking. You're going to be very specific about networking with those companies and folks that work at those companies. You become way more targeted, right? And so if you know that you're remote and you're not in, say, like the US, then you need to look for those very specific companies that hire globally and do everything you can to get on their radar, to show up at the places that they're showing up and get to know people at those companies. That's how it's different. Hey, Kingsley, welcome. Yeah. Is there a job you would recommend to get through the boot camp? No, whatever you can get that helps pay the bills as you're going through is what you got to do. We will have folks freelancing throughout the program, but that's too hit or miss. And if you got folks that are depending on that money, then you got to figure something else out. Yeah. What do you think about Web3? I think it's cool. I'm in it. Can you talk a bit about font sizing again? I'm confused when I see the 62.5% on sites. What the 62.5% is that most default font sizes for sites is 16 pixels. And my brain don't math too good. So I don't want to have to sit there and do 2 times 16, 3 times 16, 7 times 16. And so 62.5% of 16 pixels is 10 pixels. So if I do 62.5%, then I can deal with numbers at base 10. So 10, 20, 30, 40, 60, and it just makes it way easier. Yeah. Maltese says, since the average offers after boot camp is like 1.7, first, 1.7 is like the total. Most people would get 1 or 2 offers. 1.7 is kind of the average of those, right? And your leverage in negotiation is partly, if you have other offers, that's the best thing that could happen, but it's also knowing your worth, right? It's also knowing your worth and that you're still interviewing with other people. Just the idea that you're still interviewing can be enough in some companies. If you have that actual other offer, that's when we're talking about like big jumps in negotiation, but there are ways to negotiate even without other offers. After checking levels, FYI, it looks like female salaries are lower than male salaries. Yeah, I mean, I think there was a really big article that came out recently over that too. I'll see if I can find it. But yeah, I mean, welcome to the world, right? It's fucked up. And I think that's why what we're doing is important, right? Or really important. Getting more folks into these spaces, shifting the dynamics at these companies is the only way that really does make a change. In my opinion, the only way that we enact change is to have more people in these companies that have say in how those changes are enacted, right? And there's unfortunately huge biases in these jobs. I think we talked on Thursday about like people want to believe that tech is a meritocracy. It's not. That's a lie. Yeah, I think there was like a year or two ago, the number of Black women that had raised venture capital you could count, right? They're like the number of people that had, like Black women that had raised money, you could literally count. So yeah, there's huge biases in tech. Like I'll be the first one to say that for sure. And so it's something we have to know when we go into negotiating. We got to negotiate hard. We got to know that we might not be getting the fair share of the deal, and know that going into our negotiation. Change happens when you change the gatekeepers. Look at this next question here. Can you visit how and when to use Clearfix versus adding declaration versus overflow auto? So a lot of these are just like hacks, right? They're just ways of solving a problem. You don't need to worry about any of those things until you have that problem, right? So I think a lot of people try to get like into it, right? But what you want to do is you want to make sure that when you encounter a problem, you get into the habit of trying to solve that problem, right? Like Googling, trying to figure it out, right? And a lot of times we have to do some things to fix those problems. If you ever have a scenario where your container is collapsing and it's collapsing due to the stuff being floated inside of it, then that's when you use Clearfix. So it's like a very specific problem that you're having. And what I get good at doing, one thing I focus on getting good at doing, is not having to memorize all these hacks, but getting really good at like forming questions that I can put into Google, right? So I could put into like container collapsing CSS, right? And that'll probably get me to the Clearfix hack. And so you could remember container collapse because things are floating Clearfix, or you could invest in like getting good at like asking good questions and being able to troubleshoot. And so don't put so much pressure on you to remember all the hacks. Put pressure on yourself to be able to articulate what's happening in your code, what's going wrong, so you can find help when you need it. And then, yeah, terminology and Anki is huge. Exactly. Yeah, putting that stuff into your Anki deck so you don't forget it could be a big win. How do you negotiate? We'll have full classes on how to negotiate. Alrighty. Gord said, "Hey Leon, still going strong. Love your work. Hey, appreciate you. Give us up." Anonymous said, "I don't have a life. What to say when people ask me about myself?" You just tell them. Look them square in the eyes. Look them in the eyes. You give them a wink. You say I'm a baddie, and I write bad code. That's what I do, right? That's all you gotta say. That's all you gotta say. Boom, you're done. No, I think it's helpful. I think everyone has something that they're interested in, right? Everyone has something that every single person has a way of crafting their story in a way that makes sense. I've had students across every realm, shape, size, everything you could think of from every part of the world. Like, I've just seen it all. Everyone has a way of crafting their story, and it's something we spend a lot of time on during boot camp, right? And so if you feel like you don't have a plausible story, that's okay. We're going to get into it together, right? So we'll get to the point where we can figure out how to craft that story. I don't care if you haven't worked before. I don't care if you haven't worked in 20 years. I don't care what you've done in the past. There is a way to turn that into a net positive, right? Into a net positive for the jobs that you're applying to, right? Let's say you literally are just right out of high school, right? Let's say you're right out of high school and you've never worked anywhere. You're not in university, but you're looking to get a job. You can say, hey, while I was in school, every single day I had to use tools and systems that I hated. I had to use Blackboard. I had to use things that worked with the Chrome desktop environment that we were forced to use in school. And I hated every second of it. Every single day I sat there thinking there has to be a better way to solve the problems that we encounter every single day in our schooling. And so after leaving high school, I dedicated my time to learning software engineering, to gaining the skills I would need to fix the software that I hated so much. And here's my 100 hours project. I spent the last 100 hours of my life building a tool that I wish I had throughout my schooling that I think is going to help an enormous amount of individuals have an easier job learning the things they need to learn. And that's why I'm applying to your company now. I love the fact that you work in the education tech space, the ed tech space. I love creating tools that help individuals learn. I've built some amazing tools that I think really are gonna help folks learn, and I'd be really excited to work at your company building tools that help folks learn. Right? Like, that's it. You have passed the sniff test, right? You have passed the sniff test. They just need to know why you're there, right? They just need to know why you're there, why you're showing up, why you do the things that you do. And the whole point of this boot camp is to slowly craft a narrative, to slowly do things that show the companies that you're applying to that you're the real deal, that you've put thought into this, that you're intentional about the things that you build and the things that you've done, and that you are the person they should be hiring. Because I guarantee you, everyone else that's applying hasn't done stuff like that. They don't have a good coherent story, right? They don't have projects that support that story. They're not networking their way into companies and then reiterating that story to get past the sniff test. People just don't do this. That is our opportunity. That's how we get jobs coming out of a free boot camp. Right? Does our narrative have to apply the company, match the company that we're applying to? You want it to, and you might have multiple versions of that for the different companies that you're applying to, right? You will eventually build what's called a hit list, which are the 60 companies that you're networking your way into. About half of those should fit a narrative profile, right? That's something that your past experience matches, right? Right. And so that's the idea here, right? That's the idea here, that you're slowly, right? You're slowly building up this body of work, this proof that backs up the things that you say, right? So many folks feel afraid that when they leave here that they won't have something to show. You're going to have so many projects, so many things that you've built, so many people that you've worked with that lend credence to the things that you say being what they are. How do you announce on LinkedIn that you're looking for software engineering roles without alerting your current manager to a different industry? Pick a piece of software that you don't like at your job, and if you ever get asked on your software engineering, say you're learning to code because you really hate X and you think it could be really helpful to everyone on the job if you figured out how to change it. That's it. You can either, or you can say it's a hobby or something, but you want to frame it in a way that you're doing it to help your current job, not that you're looking for another job. Do you recommend that we ignore LinkedIn requests if they don't include a message and we don't know the person? I never accept them. What do I gain by accepting that person into my LinkedIn? Nothing. I just don't. So I don't add them. Now if it's like Bill Gates, maybe, you know, if Bill Gates is hitting me up on LinkedIn, right? then we're. It's funny because I said Bill Gates and then Evil said it at the same time. Yeah, if it's Bill Gates, then yeah, I'm accepting. But if it's just some random person adding me on LinkedIn, I'm just gonna assume that they're spamming. Even if I know the person from school or friendly chatter, should the people on LinkedIn only be people I've worked with? No, I think it's people that you know. I think just the barrier for me to adding them on LinkedIn is do I know you, and would I feel comfortable asking you for something? I wouldn't feel comfortable asking you for something, I won't add you to my LinkedIn. Like if I don't feel like comfortable that you would like respond to my email or something like that, then I don't add you. What about people from 100 devs that don't write a note and haven't interacted with them? Hell no, do not add them. If they're from 100 devs and they're not sending messages, no way. Get out of here. Thank you for the questions, Arasi. Yeah, they know better. Absolutely not. You cut. Send me a mod mail with their name. That's the thing too. Right now, 100 devs is like popular, right? People are just using it for clout. I don't know. There are people that are pretty sus on Twitter and on LinkedIn that are just like using the hashtag because it's because it trends, right? The 100 devs hashtag literally trends in the technology category, like every tweet that we send out, right? And so people are just using it to like get you to join their discords. They're using it to get you to show up to their spaces. They're using it to get you to like do this like other weird stuff. And so unfortunately now it's just like you gotta be careful, right? Like it's just another hashtag. And I actually had to like think about this. Like I never really thought about hashtags, and like now I feel bad that I've used some people's hashtags in the past. Like it's just really weird seeing people like promoting their stuff that have nothing to do with 100 devs that just like want people to see their stuff. Like it's weird to me because it's such like a wholesome hashtag, and there's so many wonderful people on Twitter like sharing resources and talking to other members in the cohort. But then like there's somebody that's like, buy my NFT project, 100 devs, and I'm like, what? Like why? Like what's going on? Yeah, it's weird. Yeah, I think even on LinkedIn now too, just kind of go back to the original question, people are adding it just to get like LinkedIn numbers up. Yeah. Please don't send me a mod mail if somebody like doesn't send you a message on LinkedIn. That was a joke. So people don't get my jokes. That was a joke. Don't send a mod mail for that. All right, next question here. Why do you prefer to style elements instead of using buttons? Does one way or the other impact semantics? It's because buttons are weird and they're very hard to style, or they used to be hard to style. And they cause a lot of trouble, and technically they're part of form. So should they be an anchor tag or should they be a button? It's a semantic. I at least think it's a semantic argument to be had, right? It's a semantic argument to be had. But at the end of the day, they're weird and I don't like them. And I'm a baddie and I write bad code. You know, I just find it easier to use the anchor tags, and I think I could hold down a semantic argument as to why. But in the day, it just doesn't matter too much. After you create a website for someone, how responsible are you for maintenance and updates? It depends on what your contract says. Most of my contracts do not include maintenance, and they do not include updates. I also charge a lot of money, right? Right. Also, like I charge a lot of money. So most people will pay me to like build the thing, but then they'll find somebody else to maintain it. I also don't do maintenance contracts anymore. I used to do maintenance contracts where like they would pay me a certain amount of money each month for like an hour of my time. It just wasn't worth it to be on call and have to worry about that stuff. But some people do make a lot of money just off their maintenance contract. So it's up to you. If it's not in your contract, you don't worry about it. And we're going to actually talk about freelancing very soon. I think like we're at what, class 9, around 12 or 13 is when we're going to do the 12 or 13 to do the how to freelance. And so we'll be covering that stuff soon. I usually watch your videos at 175. It's strange to hear you at normal speed. Yeah, I feel that way too. I watch most of mine at 175. Like most of the videos I watch online at 175. How do companies look at non-CS advanced degrees? As long as you framed your story, it can be helpful. Yeah, I think some companies care, most probably don't. But it's always a value add, right? As long as it matches your story. Yeah, touch a bit on M and REM again. So M's and REMs are responsive units of measure, right? Are we supposed to use floats for homework? Yes. Responsive units of measure. And so instead of hard coding pixel values, right? Let's say we had 5,000 lines of CSS and we've coded all of our fonts at different pixel sizes. If we wanted to go through and double the size of all of our fonts, we'd have to not only find all those pixel values, we'd also have to double them and do all the math. If instead we had sized them in M's or REMs, we'd have to change one spot, the parent element's size. So let's say the parent element was 10 pixels. If we changed it to 20 pixels, every single M is now worth double, right? Now, M's were used for a while, but the problem with M's is that they look to the parent. Why does this happen on Sundays? This is so weird. Hold on. So weird. All right. I gotta fix the backup camera to be better, but it only happens on Sundays. Daytime hotter weather, maybe. It's so weird though. It's only happens during office hours, and we're not even in like a full class. We're like what, an hour and some change, an hour and 40 minutes in, right? Like, so it's not even half as long. But every Sunday, I think you're right. I think it's just earlier in the day, and so it's hotter in my room for some reason, and the smaller camera can't do it. I gotta set up this main camera to be the main camera. I'll do that this week. It's just a pain in the butt to do all the switching for the cameras and stuff, but it's so weird that it keeps happening during office hours. And it just overheats. Like I can see the camera overheating. Like I get the little alerts start popping up, overheating. God is upset for you working on the Sabbath. My Sabbath is from Friday night into Saturday night, so that can't be it. Why is your beard glitching? This camera is set up a little bit different, right? This is a little bit different because like the green screen is really hard on different cameras, and so this is like I haven't put enough time into this one to get it dialed in, right? Yeah. No. Alrighty. Let's. What was the question I was answering? Sorry, I cut off on your question. I forget what it was. The REMs and M's. Sorry, REMs and M's. So the problem with M's is that, right? The problem with M's is that if any parent, right? If any parent gets set at a different font size, the M's will grab that parent, right? So if you had like a section that all your stuff with M's were inside of, and that changes, or there's like another section that gets added, the ability for the ability for the M's to changes based on, I gotta look at a different camera. The ability for the M's to changes on the parent. And so that gets really confusing, because if you're working on a big team and somebody else changes the container's font size or that parent's font size, then all your M's have different values. And so rems are really helpful, because rems will only ever look at the HTML element. So it doesn't matter how many parents you put on, how many containers there are, rems just don't care. Rems will always look at the HTML element, and that's always going to be the basis for their size. So you'll see on the HTML element, some people put like 10 pixels, or some people put 62.5% to give you 10 pixels. And then that way, you know, all your rems are base 10. Yeah. What do you think holds back self-taught learners from becoming a developer? I think it's the thing we've always talked about in class. I think it's really hard for adult learners to manage their frustration. Most people that give up because they're frustrated, right? So that managing of the frustration is very difficult for adults. Like, lots of science behind adults really not losing so much the ability to learn, but more so gaining the ability to be frustrated more easily. So people that are self-taught don't manage their frustration well. They're not consistent, right? If you're not consistent, you try to just do it one day a week. That one day a week you wind up skipping, and so you don't ever actually learn. So being consistent, daily consistent practice is a hard ask for a lot of people, because not everyone has the privilege of time, right? So we got manage frustration, be consistent, and then take care of yourself. A lot of people come hot out the gate. They're doing Free Code Camp, the Odin Project, 100 devs, CS50, Udemy. They're doing everything at one time, and then they burn out in a month or two, and then they just never go back to it, right? Or they pick one thing and they're doing well, but they're not doing their stretches. They're not taking their breaks. They're not hydrating. They're not getting good sleep. They're not using Anki, right? Using Anki is part of taking care of yourself, right? And so folks that don't do those three things, manage frustration, be consistent, and take care of yourself, they don't make it to the promised land. They don't become engineers. Well, they don't become employed engineers. Yeah. Can you briefly explain why Anki is so important? It's because software engineering is a cumulative career, meaning that you need to know this stuff for the rest of your life. And so Anki just makes sure you don't forget stuff. Every human has a forgetting curve. Most humans, by the end of 30 days, will have forgotten 80% of the stuff they just learned. And so you got to use Anki so you don't forget stuff. Kind of looking through the questions here. Will you be covering how freelancing affects our taxes or how we file? Is this something that we need to research independently? There will be huge disclaimers that I am not a tax professional, that I am not a lawyer. I will share the ramblings of someone that has done this before. By the end of the day, that will be your responsibility. But I'll share what I know and some tips and tricks. By the end of the day, it's your responsibility. So I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a CPA. What do you think about using a Windows desktop and Apple laptop? Does it make things needlessly difficult to cross-platform, or is it fine? I mean, that's what my setup is. Right now, I am streaming from a Windows PC, but the screen you see in my other screen are my Apple laptop. So I switch between both quite frequently. Right, I switch between both quite frequently. It's fine. I prefer to do my development on a Unixy type environment. So I much prefer coding on Mac OS or GNU Linux. Most of my development happens on GNU Linux or Mac OS. That's a personal preference. I think now that Windows has things like WSL and some other baked in stuff, it doesn't really matter as much anymore. You can use whatever you feel comfortable with, but I feel most comfortable on Mac OS or GNU Linux, but I've used the most. What are your thoughts on view height units? I use them. It's something that we'll touch a little bit on. You can run Ubuntu straight on Windows 10 now, 11. That's pretty cool. I'm a Debian person. Yeah. Cool. We're looking through some of these questions here. Can you give some words of encouragement or specific advice for those of us who are pushing over 40? Just do it. It doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter. So many people get like this concept in their head that like the age matter. It just doesn't. It like, yes, you'll find some bias in some companies, but everyone's going to have something that some company doesn't like about them. So it literally just does not matter. Go on the Celebrations channel, read Jennifer's post about their job. Like it just doesn't matter. Manage your frustration. I think the only thing that matters when it comes to age is that the older you are, the harder it is to manage your frustration. And so my advice to folks that are older is just figure out better ways to manage your frustration, and then it literally does not matter. We've had folks that are in their 50s get jobs, 40s get jobs. I've helped somebody in their 60s get a job. Like it just does not matter. How long would you estimate that it should take a beginner to complete each of the 2 websites due next week for homework? There's no way for me to answer that question because everybody is completely different. Just like employed software engineers have been doing this for years are completely different. I've worked with some engineers that could spit out a layout in like 2 hours, and I have some that it would take them a week to do it. There's no sense this early on comparing yourself to others. I know this is not what you're trying to do. I know you're trying to like get an idea or estimation, but I really need you to look internally. Are you being good with your time? Are you giving your focus and energy to the time that you're putting in? Because if you're doing your best, you're putting in your time, you're being focused, you're using Pomodoro, you're not going into your days like accidents. If you're doing it, then you're doing fine. You're doing okay. If it takes you 10 hours or 2 hours, it just does not matter. It's what you're doing with the time that you have that does matter. And so I know early on you're like trying to get a good guess, but it's gonna be different for every person. It's gonna be different for every engineer. And so I just don't want folks to I don't want to say like a number and then folks be like, oh my God, Leon said 5 hours, but it took me 10, right? No, it's just everyone is different. You got, as long as you're being effective with your time, you're being intentional with your time, and you're seeking help when you get stuck. Here's the thing. If you spent more than 20 minutes on something and you're stuck, you need to ask for help. That's the biggest indicator someone's being successful or not, is how frequently are they asking for questions when they get stuck, and how good are they at asking questions. Don't just say, look at my code. That does nothing for you. It does nothing for the folks that are looking at your code. Have very poignant questions. I'm stuck on this thing. I don't know how to do this thing. Can you help me with this? The folks that get unstuck and continue on are the folks that become good, high-paid software engineers. You got to get comfortable being uncomfortable, asking questions, getting unstuck, right? So to me, it's not how long, it's how effective were you with that time. Does Googling count as asking questions? Yeah. But if you can't get unstuck from Google, you gotta jump on Discord. Yeah, that's why our Discord community is so amazing. We're almost 25,000 people on there that are answering questions all times of the day. Like, it's such a beautiful community. I cannot be more thankful enough. And so make sure that you're asking questions, you're getting unstuck. I have such a hard time focusing. Even when I shut off all distractions, I just end up spacing out while reading. Pomodoro. You gotta figure out the amount of focus that you have, right? For some folks, they can study 25 minutes on, 25 off, no problem. Some people only have 5 minutes of focus in them. You can't go into this expecting that you're gonna have some standard amount of focus. Each person is different. Find how much time you can actually focus and make sure you're giving yourself that amount of time on, and then a break with Pomodoro, and then make sure you're doing active recall. For me, my attention issues make it really hard to read, and what winds up happening is I feel like I teleport. I feel like I'll go through a whole chapter, and at the end of the chapter I'm just like, I have no idea how I got to where I am. And so to stop that teleporting behavior, I literally have to stop like every 2 to 3 paragraphs and ask myself, what the heck did I just learn, right? And being more intentional with my active recall is the only way I get through material. And I do this now. Someone has been learning to code for years now. Like I still have to do that, and I don't think that'll ever change. But you have, like, if you're blanking out, if you're spacing out, it means you have to, one, decrease the amount of time that you're spent focusing, and then also make sure you're doing your active recall way more frequently. I'm having a hard time when responding this. Is that normal? Yeah, it takes a while to get better at this stuff. I found exercising also helps me focus. Yeah, absolutely. The days that I exercise and I eat right and I get good sleep are always way better than the days that I don't. How do you handle all the things people ask you to know about tech in terms of tools, languages, applications, platforms? You study it. So we have something called the bank, which is a list of hundreds of questions that you are going to answer and then memorize. A lot of people in the industry hate this, but fuck them. we have the bank. People call it Banky. It's just a bank of hundreds of questions that you'll memorize so that you can get through the sniff test in those interviews. How are you today? I'm doing all right. Doing good. What do you think about Upwork? I hate it. What's your advice on how to get projects on it? Don't. Build your own network that you own where you're not competing against bottom of the barrel, I would say. Some folks are really successful on Upwork. Great. I just rather get higher paid projects with my own network that I completely own, and not be dependent on some other platform where I'm racing to the bottom in terms of price. Evan, how do you get so many questions to the top? I swear you always have like 4 or 5 questions that get to the top of the Slido. Thank you. Appreciate you. You can go through an example of image sizing and positioning, like a logo in the header or images floated like in the section of VBC layout. Just give them a height and width. Yeah, there's nothing really more to it for right now. Just give your images a height and a width. Sometimes your images don't like height and width if they're not block level. So you display block on your images and then give them a height and width and call it a day. Especially when you're doing like these early layouts. Yeah. Display block, height and width, call it a day. And typically people just do one, like they won't do height and width or just width and height. They'll pick one direction. That way the image can resize properly. If you're working with a good designer, they might give you appropriately sized images or an SVG. If you're not working with a good designer, you might have to do that on your own. So for like these projects, don't stress like if images are blurry or not, like doesn't matter. When you're working with a good designer, they'll give you the appropriately sized images or SVGs which scale. So yeah, don't worry about that for now. Tor, I do follow them. I find their videos very helpful. How many Pokemon cards have you sent? A lot. Yeah, quite a bit. How many people are submitting homework? I think around 3,000. Yeah, let's look. Yeah, almost 3,000 for the class 8 homework. And we're hitting a max of like, we're hitting over 5,000 people each class. Even though the last two classes were still hitting over 5,000. And so that's pretty much what we saw last cohort too, where there was like a third of the people that were here weren't actually doing any of the work. They were just kind of coming to class. I guess I don't understand that fully, but I'm glad you're here, I guess. Yeah. Must be the hair. Yeah, maybe. Will we go over GitHub pages for hosting static pages? We'll cover Git and GitHub. We're gonna have a full class on it, and we'll show GitHub pages during that class. But I also recommend Netlify, and that's what I showed during class. Is Netlify is what I use for all my static hosting. So you'll see me use Netlify a lot, but we'll also go over Git and GitHub for sure, and GitHub pages. For homework on level ground and push homework, should we do it with bad code? Yeah, you always start with bad code. We're all bad as you write bad code. You write bad code to start, and as you have time, you can refactor. Refactoring's for closers. Let's close it. Oh, there we go. Cool. Can you give us an example of making fluid layouts with floats? It's just percentages. That's all it means by fluid. Is your stuff sized in percentages? If your widths are percentages, it's fluid. That's it. So you saw with all the layouts that we did, our widths were a percentage, and as long as they're in percentages, you have a fluid layout. That's all it is. Just widths and percentages. Yeah. How do you overcome getting stuck on a particular problem? I find myself looking at code for hours. No, please don't ever do that. 20 minutes max. That's all y'all get. That's all y'all get. You get 20 minutes. After 20 minutes of you not figuring something out, you got to go on Discord and ask questions. That's it. 20 minutes of being stuck. That's all you get. 20 minutes and then you're done. Then you go on Discord and you ask questions. Exactly as Indifferent just said, don't suffer in silence. You get 20 minutes. That's it. No matter how hard the problem is. And this is something I do in my life too. I get 20 minutes. After my 20 minutes, it's up. It's over. I got to go ask questions. What do you consider a coffee chat? Is DMing someone and having a conversation a coffee chat? Yeah, like if you all met on voice and you talked for 20 minutes or so, that's a coffee chat. Now normally, that back in the day, we used to go to this place called Starbucks. It was like a place that served coffee, and you go to the store, you could buy your coffee there, and then they had like these tables and chairs you could sit at, and you could have a conversation with somebody there. So that's what coffee chats used to be. But now we do that all virtually, and so if it's on Discord or Zoom or whatever, that's totally fine. Google Meets, whatever. Yeah, I think most of you will be having coffee chats that are just virtual, not like in person. Yeah, be safe, right? Please be safe. Please be safe, right? We have folks coming from all over the world where COVID is still a big problem or not a big problem, and so be safe. Virtual is so easy. Do virtual for now. You don't have to be meeting up with people. Let's not make the news, okay? 100 devs, super spreader. Leon said we had to network. Will there be 100 devs podcast in the future? It's something I'm working on. We got a lot of big folks that want to come on, so I think it'd be fun to set up. There's not a secondary study forum. We do not have a forum. We use Discord. Favorite scene or moment of Independence Day? I think we're going to talk about that during class. No spoilers. Yeah, I don't want to spoil it for people that haven't watched it yet. I understood maybe 1% of the pre-processors chapter in Shay. Is that a bad thing? Nope. Get through it. Make sure you've at least heard of those concepts and ideas, and that's what we're looking for. All the core stuff that you need to know we'll cover in class. Do you have any networking tips for people who need to maintain privacy online? You don't need to use your real name. Yeah, I have a lot of folks that network with like a pseudonym. Yeah, and only actually share their real name and info when it comes time to apply. Yeah, we had quite a few folks last cohort that couldn't publicly do a lot of stuff for various different reasons, and so a lot of them just used monikers or pseudonyms. Yeah. Does that look shady? No. A lot of people do it. Do I recommend it? No. Like I definitely don't recommend you do it just for funsies, but a lot of folks don't have that privilege and they have to do it. And so, yeah. I mean, it's definitely doable. Folks did it last cohort. It's not my advice I would give to everyone, but if you have to, sure, you can make it work. Is it weird to message people on Twitter asking for a coffee chat in the near future? No, not if you've been engaging with them. It's kind of maybe a little weird to do it out of the blue, but if you haven't like met them, asking for coffee chats for people that like you've met already. I don't really like to send out cold invites to coffee chats. They're typically people I've networked with already that I then ask for a coffee chat. I'm sure you can get to that stage just solely on Twitter, but I'm not a fan of just like cold outreach. They need to know me and I need to have interacted with them, and then I ask. Alrighty. Let's see what else we got here. We'll do a few more and then we'll do our raid. A few more and then we'll do our raid. People have had coffee chats thanked and thanked, but could not move from acquaintance to friend. What do you do with these connections down the road, 6 months to a year? You keep interacting with them. Yeah, keep interacting with them. You keep them in like your list. It is not everyone moves from stranger to friend quickly. Some will be quicker, some will be not. And so you just got to keep it up your time, keep engaging with them, and it's not always a quick process. Don't put pressure on yourself to make it a quick process. Yeah, what do we do if we get a job offer, if we are early in the journey and feel like we aren't ready? Do we go full Leroy Jenkins and go for it? Yeah, of course. We're here to get jobs. If you get a job offer, you take it. You can always learn. You can always learn on the job. Yeah, always learn on the job. How important is it to have a LinkedIn? It's pretty important. It's a big place for folks to network. It's a good place to add folks after you've had calls with people. I think it's pretty important. Yeah. If you were offered a faculty position in an Ivy League university, would you accept? Why not? No, doesn't really pay enough. Like you gotta, like, if you like are like, if you've made like tenured professor like at like Yale, that was like 120, at least from the professors I talked to. So I think as a software engineer you could do way more. And then most universities have like mandates to do research and not just teaching. Some do have teaching components to it, but a lot of them mandate research and not teaching. I care about teaching, not research. Alrighty. Gonna do one more and let's do a rage. Let's do a rage. A raid. Will this cohort be able to add 100 devs to our LinkedIn like the previous cohort? Yeah, we'll be able to. Cool. All right, folks. Like I said, I think we're gonna end a little early today, so I'm gonna call it here. I really appreciate y'all coming and hanging out for a while. Got through a lot of these good questions. Let's do a raid. Remember, you always want to do the raid just because it takes 2 seconds. Let's spread some love and positivity around. Give them some follows if you haven't given them a follow, and you get those sweet channel points. All right, we're going to Kickaboo. Looks like they're doing some learning as well. All right, folks. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Have a wonderful rest of your Sunday, if it's still Sunday where you are. And I'll see you all in class on Tuesday. Really excited for this week. Thank you for hanging out, and I will see all of you very, very shortly. Peace, everyone. Have a good rest of your day. Let's raid.